So going to hit record right now. Video cameras are not necessary, so you can absolutely keep those off. You won't be in the recording. But I'm recording this because there's a few students that can't make it today, and because we're going over big ticket items, I just want to make sure that they can see everything. And then this way too, if you have any questions and you want to go back over it, you can. All right, so let's get started. So welcome, this is Psych 308, History of Psych. I see a lot of familiar names from either advising or previous classes. So thanks for coming back, I guess. I also see a few of you that are in both of my classes. Some of this, actually a majority of this, will be kind of overlap from our previous meeting just an hour ago. But obviously the nitty gritty will change because the class is different and the assignments are a little bit different. But a little bit about me, who I am. Again, I know a lot of you already, but I'm Dr. Avila, and I have served two roles here at the university. I'm a teaching assistant professor, which just means I teach a couple courses, and I'm an academic advisor. So I advise all of our psych majors, psych students. You're going to hear me talk about advising probably too much in this class, but if you have any questions about advising, you can come at any time. You can talk to me. And then also we'll talk a little bit about advising throughout if you have questions. I'm in the psychology department, which is now in the newly named FE Mona Mac. I'm in room 405, which is right across from the main psych department office. I do have an open door policy. So if my door is open and I am in there, you're more than welcome to come in. If it's kind of half shut, you can just knock and see if I'm available. I'll definitely be there Tuesday through Thursday. Monday, Fridays, I might work from home a little bit more. You can email me at any time. I'm on social media. So if you want to find me on Twitter, I usually post a lot of opportunities. So grad school opportunities, career opportunities, things like that. So if you're interested, those are some ways to contact me. A little bit about me and my kind of history is I got my bachelor's in psychology at Fresno State. Sorry, it's going to happen a lot of talking too much today. I had an emphasis in clinical, kind of as much as you can emphasize in undergrad. I worked on a research project looking at like facial expressions in both intermittent explosive disorder, so with anger and aggression, and depression, and whether or not people could distinguish between them. They're not really that great at distinguishing facial expressions. But I realized at that time I wasn't super excited about going into clinical. I kind of wanted to, but I didn't think it was what was right for me. So I went into a master's program in social psych to see which one I liked better. And I had an emphasis in kind of intergroup aggression. So I was looking at why does aggression between groups occur and how do we kind of mitigate it? And I really liked that one. That was at Long Beach State. And so I went on to do my PhD. I got accepted to Ole Miss to work with a researcher. We were going to do intergroup aggression with like eye tracking software. It was really cool. But happenstance, that professor left to go to a different university right as I was coming in. And I had to be switched to an entirely different professor. And she was in developmental psych, not anything I had any familiarity with. And I ended up loving development. I really like to understand learning and creativity and all of that stuff. And so I switched and I studied cognitive development, and I studied how children, ages like 8 to 10, also how adults learn. So I studied academic achievement with creativity, with learning, all of that stuff. So if you're interested in studying study techniques, time management, learning, all that stuff, I know way too much about it. So that's a little bit about my history, since we're a history class. I spend most of my time either working or with family. I have two small kids. They're 6 and 4 right now. They're actually home, so they might make an appearance on this Zoom session. I also have a dog, Georgia. She's 7. Spend most of my time hiking with her. And I do the quintessential kind of Reno stuff, hiking, snowboarding, skiing. I'm learning how to ski. I only know how to snowboard. And running kind of half marathons and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I do for fun. And I read and binge watch TV. I think most people do. So we're going to kind of skip this today because we don't have a ton of time. So as an advisor, I just like to kind of do a statement of resources. We have a ton available to you here at UNR. People will tell you they're free. They're not free. You're paying for them. The large, huge amounts of debt that you're going into funds them. So we have the Writing and Speaking Center. Obviously, I think you know probably like what Writing Center does for you. But they're also the Speaking Center. So how many students do I have that are planning to go to graduate school pretty soon? I see a couple hands. And you can just write in the chat or raise your hand. Yeah, I usually have a lot. It's usually like all of the class. So what's really cool about the Speaking Center, and even if you're not planning to go to graduate school, if you're planning to get a job afterwards, the Speaking Center actually will help you prepare for a few things. One, class presentations. If you have class presentations and you get nervous or you want to prepare, they'll help you do the run-throughs and give you feedback. But also they'll help you with like job interviews or grad school interviews and those types of things. So you can do that back and forth and prepare a little earlier. Oh, somebody used to work there. So helpful for the mock interviews. Yay. Yes, they'll help you with kind of mock interviews for grad school for things like that. The Writing Center will help you with your resume, CV, stuff like that. Same with our Career Studio. They'll help you with resume. The Career Studio actually has coming up next week a couple of internship and job fairs as well. So go to their website. If you need the information, email me and I'll let you know. So tons of resources. Our library loans things to you for free as well. So if your laptop breaks and you can't buy a new one, they'll loan you a laptop for the entire semester. They also loan like lighting equipment, cameras, like video cameras, actual cameras, everything. Crazy stuff. If you need something and you don't want to pay for it, check them out first. They might have it available for you to loan. We have the DRC. I have a few accommodations that came through. If you think you need an accommodation through the university, let them know. As far as accommodations in my class, I try really, really hard to design the class not to really need a lot of those. We'll see that kind of coming up. But obviously, I can't do that for everything. If you have an accommodation, documented or not, come to me. We'll try to figure out a way to best serve you and best get you to learn. Counseling services, always, all throughout the semester. They're there. They do group counseling, individual counseling, all that good stuff. There's tons more. If you ever have questions about any services, resources, things like that, come to advising. We talk about those all the time. So counseling services, disability services, they're far more than just accommodations too. They can get you note takers, alternative testing, all that good stuff. So for more resources just from me, you can find me. I talk on TikTok about like learning and strategies and stuff like that if you care. My website, I actually give away all of the resources that I typically give to students in advising. So how to write the best resume, how to write the best statement of purpose, how to find careers, time management skills, all that kind of stuff. I have those available on my website. My website's listed in the syllabus if you want that. I also, is anybody wondering, confused about where they want to go, what type of career they want, still considering, still questioning? At least a couple of you. I have a full-time job and I'm still constantly questioning if it's the right one. On my website, there's also a podcast that goes through like career options. So it's talking with not just psychologists, but people of all careers, how they got into that, what considerations they made, what that career looks like, how to get into it yourself, what advice, all that kind of stuff. So those are some resources that I offer to everybody for free. And that's for that. Let me start. I'm going to ask you all some questions that'll guide us into kind of how we start talking about the syllabus. So let me get it started. So since most of you are on a computer or phone, you can go to kahoot.it. It'll come up really quick, the website, and enter the game pin, and you can enter it in here. If you don't want to use that, you can feel free to put all these answers in the chat too. But we'll give about a minute, 2 minutes for everyone to log in. All right, I see most of us are there. We'll give about 30 more seconds for people to log in if they want to. All right, let's get started. So my first question is essentially, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word grades or when you think about grades? So you don't have to stop to think about it. Just when I say grades, what pops into your head? I see some in the chat. Judgment, yes.
I'm really sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the second hand?
All right, so the biggest one is stress. This was actually the same as my last class, is all of it was stress. So stressful, stress, anxiety, fake. Ooh, I like that one. Expectations, criticism, must do good, kind of pressure, failure, homework, GPA, judgment, all of that. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Why do you think that stress or anxiety is probably the biggest thing that comes through with grades? And again, just throw it in the chat if you want to. Lots of deadlines. Yeah, you essentially have 4 or 5 bosses just in college, and I'm sure you have actual jobs as well. So much pressure riding on your success in class. Right, so we're striving to get good grades. So we have this kind of system set up where grades kind of end up defining, just like that Abigail just said, define us, define who we are. There's a lot of pressure. It's defining who you are. There's pressure that if you want to get into graduate school, if you want to get into a good job, you need a high GPA, all of these things. And though sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But the reason we talk about grades in this course is that for those that have taken me before, you know this, but for those that are new, I do a different grading system where we almost throw them out completely. I tried to throw them out completely. The students got really anxious. So we do a little bit of a different format. So I'm going to come back to talk about this once we get through the syllabus. But we're going to kind of try to reduce a lot of this stress, a lot of this anxiety around the grades, and focus a little bit more on the content of the class, the feedback, what you're doing really well, what you need to improve upon, etc. Sorry, parenting and teaching. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to kind of come back to this. But first, I want to know one more question. What do you want to learn this semester? And this can be specific to this class. It can be in general. It can be a skill that you want to learn. If you got to pick kind of one thing that you really wanted to learn about this semester, what is that? All right, this one's a little long one. There's still about 30 more seconds for you to decide. All right. Let's see. So people want to learn about the history of psych. We will obviously learn all about that. Better study habits. I teach mostly about that in my Psych 316 or cognitive psych class. But I have a ton of great things. It's what my research focuses on. So if you ever want any information about study habits, study techniques, just let me know. I've got tons of resources for you. Major people and how they influence modern day psych. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about people that aren't really major. So you're going to learn about people that were important to the history of psych, but aren't discussed about a lot. What you need to graduate. We have all of that in advising, so you can come. There'll be some days in class where we talk about advising things because students always seem eager to learn about that, so we can talk about that. Time management, again, I have tons of tips for time management anytime you want them. Some of those tips are built into the class, so you'll work on some time management things. We'll kind of come back to that in a minute. More about the field you're going into. Depending on, I usually have a lot of non-psych majors. So for the non-psych majors, you will learn a little bit more about a field related. So you will be learning about an area of psychology that you're most interested in, which could correspond to whatever your major is if you're not psych major. If you are a psych major, it should correspond to something maybe a field you're interested in going into. So you'll learn a lot more about that field. How to bench 45s on each side. I can't help you with that. I can't do that. But yeah, how to handle school full time. We'll learn about kind of all of these different things. Again, the study skills, those skill developments, I try to build that into course, but if you need extra help, just let me know. So let's go through the course, what you need to know for now, what you need to get started on. So this is our main course page on Canvas. Can everybody see the Canvas website? I want to make sure I'm good. Okay. So this main landing page just has a little infographic with how to kind of study better, what the class is kind of made up of. We're going to talk about each of these a little bit in a minute. Also how to contact me. So social media, email. In terms of meeting with me, I've set up coffee hours. So I'll be in Starbucks from 9 to 10, probably a little earlier than that too. But on Tuesdays from 9 to 10, I'll be in Starbucks if you want to come chat and have a coffee. Or you can come to my office. Again, I have open door policy if I'm in there. Or you can schedule an appointment. That link is in the syllabus. It's also in some other places in this Canvas page I'll show you. As well as just some course links and some campus resource links if you need them. That's that main page. A little note about announcements, as you've noticed, because we had to completely pivot this first week. Also, thank you for being accommodating and pivoting so quickly. Announcements are how I'm going to send you all the information. If something's going to change, if a class is canceled, if I need something, if I have just a general feedback that everybody needs to know about from a project, it'll all come through in announcements. So make sure you either read through your announcements once a day or get notifications, however you do that. Just make sure you're kind of reading through those because that's how I'll contact you most of the time. Everything else for the class should be located in the modules. So we have this start here module. This will always stay at the top because this is all the course info. It's the syllabus, the course calendar, all of that stuff. You also have a meet your instructors page. This is contact information for all of us. So a little bit about me, my email, how to contact me, where my office is, where the coffee hour is, all of that stuff is there. Also how to schedule an appointment with me is right here. The resources I talked about from my website, all that stuff is here. A little idea of things you can come chat about if you don't know what you can talk about. Again, I'm also an advisor, so you can talk about both advising and class. do them both. And then we also have TAs. So we have a graduate TA, Finley. She's going to be responsible for helping me get you a lot of that feedback. She's really knowledgeable because she is a graduate student and has taken courses before. So if you have any questions and you feel more comfortable reaching out to her, you're more than welcome to. And then we also have some undergraduate TAs who are working in the class as well. They're going to be more kind of that in-person. Once we're back next week in person when we do activities, they'll walk around. You can ask them questions. You can always email them. Again, if you feel more comfortable reaching out to a peer versus me, you can always email me too. But all their contact information is here. And then this page, it's a what to do when life happens page. Again, it will always be at the top in that Start Here module. As we saw this week, life happens, right? I got COVID for the first time in 2.5 years on the very first week of school. It happens. So there's two things in here. One is there's a form to fill out if you need an extension for anything. So we'll talk about my late policy. I guess I'll just talk about it now. So my late policy essentially is most things are due Sunday at midnight, but you have 24-hour grace period to turn that in. The reason for that essentially is, again, life happens. Computers don't work. You're busy, you're at work, you're at a party, I don't really care. And I would get emails from students that like, I can't turn it in. What if I need to turn it out like 1 in the morning? I'm not up at that time. I'm not going to respond to those emails, and I don't want any kind of consequence for that. So you have 24 hours. You can turn it in all the way up until that Monday. But if you need longer than that Monday, you can fill out this extension form. You don't need a reason or an excuse. You just need a plan of when you're going to get it in. So anybody, anytime, for any reason, can fill out for an extension. The other thing is if you need a Zoom for that class day. So if you get sick, if you get COVID, if you can't make it, if you need to do something else at the same time, you can fill out this form and our TAs will send you a Zoom link and they'll monitor kind of that Zoom for the class. And then you have the typical stuff in here, your syllabus, the course calendar, all of that. Also in the modules after the start here, you're going to have each week. And this is where everything that's due for the class will show up. And I'll also post lecture slides in here once we get started. But everything in there. So this week you have the reading and you have an individual learning plan or the ILP, which some of you have already started or done. It's all going to be kind of in these weekly modules. The last thing is to talk really about perusal, which is where we're going to get access to the syllabus and all the readings and those reading assignments. So for those who haven't used perusal before, perusal's an annotation software. So it allows me to put all of your readings in here and you get them for free. I've put them in here for free. And you will annotate on them to have discussions, ask questions, all of that good stuff. So here's the syllabus. You can see there's also a part 2 to this. So if you click on the bottom, continue assignment, it'll take you to the second one, which most people have started, at least the second one. You do need to make comments on both. So for this one, you also need to make comments on the syllabus. To make a comment, you just highlight something that you think is important. Let's highlight this. And then you just type. So here's my question, whatever it is. You can ask questions. You can link things to other courses that you've taken before. You can answer people's questions. You can follow up on what they're saying. Just interact with it organically and you'll be fine. For this first week, interact as well as you can. And what I'll do is if anybody's at risk of not getting points for this assignment, I'm going to send you detailed feedback of what you need to do differently. And that way by week 2, I've been using this for about 2-3 years now. And by week 2, nobody has any problems. So I know it's hard to understand what a professor is looking for when they say like interact and annotate. You'll know by the end of the first week if you're having any issues. So let's go through the syllabus. The syllabus front page, pretty easy. What we're going to be learning. So what kind of skills I think that you should have by the end of the class. I even have work-related skills on here that you can actually put onto your resume, your CV that you'll have after the class. All my contact information here, how to get to me, how to make appointments, the TAs, their contact, all of that is on here. Our course textbook, again, everything's available on Perusal for free. There's also PDFs on Canvas. You can also rent the book from the library. It's available for free online at the library. You can listen to it. I had a question about audiobooks. If you listen to audiobooks and it's available, you can do it that way. But all of it should be free either through this, through Canvas, through Perusal, or through the library. You shouldn't have to purchase it unless you are dying to purchase it and keep it. Otherwise, it should be completely free for you. So don't buy it unless you really want to. The next page is just about class values, what I think. I want you to learn mostly about advice from past students, how to succeed, those types of things. And then here's what the class is really made of. So here's the assignments that you're going to do each week. So each week you'll have a reading assignment that's due Sunday by midnight. That's the Perusal on here. You'll make a couple annotations. There's no set number for annotations. You need at least one on each reading if there's more than one reading assignment. But beyond that, it's just the content of them. So you can totally write things like, I agree with you. I think that's awesome. I want to learn more about this. But those aren't really exercising kind of critical thinking. I'm looking more like, oh, I learned about this in this other class, and now I'm connecting these two things. Or this is really cool. Here's why I think it's really cool. Those kinds of things. Hold on. Sorry. So that's the reading assignment. Again, you'll get detailed feedback this first week of how you're doing. I also will kind of go through and answer people's questions, things like that each week. So will the TAs. The next thing we're doing is exit tickets. So exit tickets are essentially to help you retrieve the information more frequently, to help you process and understand what you're learning, to help me figure out if there's anything I need to go back over, or if you have any different questions, things like that. So those are going to be pretty much at the end of every single class. Now that seems a little scary. I don't have an attendance policy, so you don't have to attend every class, which means you can miss up to usually like 10 or so exit tickets and still come out with an A in the class. So if you miss a class, don't worry about missing that exit ticket. As long as you're not missing every single class the entire year, you'll be fine. Did I have a question from anyone? Okay. So you don't have to meet every single exit ticket because there's a lot since there's one every single class day. But you'll need to get at least kind of 90% of them. But again, if you miss a class, you don't have to make up this exit ticket assignment. It's a small kind of assignment. The next thing we'll be doing throughout the class is learning assessments. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when I get to the grading policy. But throughout the class, several times, you're going to be assessing your learning. So you're going to use what we call metacognition and cognitive psychology, where you're going to think about what you've been learning, what you've been processing, how well you're meeting your goals, what new skills you're developing, all these things that are a little bit more important for applying to graduate school or applying to jobs in the future of how do you think about these processes. You're also going to be giving yourself a grade multiple times throughout the semester. And this is where we kind of check in with that. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. We'll have chance for extra credit. There's actually 2 in the syllabus. I've had a few people turn them in already. Some people are pointing them out on Perusal, so be sure to read what other people are writing on Perusal. Extra credit will kind of count towards some of these exit tickets if you miss them, something like that. They'll get you a few extra points. Then we'll have what we call working weeks. You have a couple projects in this course, and our working weeks are going to be times where we are in class and we're not going over new content. We're just working on those projects. So you actually have time built into the course to work on the projects. So you can use a little less time outside of the class, hopefully, to work on those. For all of those that mentioned they want to increase their time management, this is a good strategy. We can kind of come through and work on these projects together, give you a little bit of break from new stuff to help you work on either stuff from this course or even stuff from other courses if you need to at the time. And then you have 2 projects. So your first one is what I call a solo project. This is you working by yourself. This is the big research project. Now we're going to talk about this at length in the 3rd week of class. So not next week, but the following week. So I'm only going to give you a brief overview now, but don't worry, we'll go in depth multiple times over the semester, so you'll know exactly what you're doing. But for this assignment, what you're going to be doing is researching the history of an area of psychology that you're most interested in. So I'm assuming I have some students that want to go into like clinical psychology or experimental or things like that. You can kind of research the history of clinical psychology in itself. So what the history is, what that field looks like now. So exactly what is going on in that field right now, and even where you predict it to go in the future. So for the person that mentioned that they really want to understand their field better, this assignment is giving you exactly that. And again, for my non-majors, there's literally an area of psych for every other major that exists. Like if you're in engineering, there's an engineering psychology. I have a lot of kinesiology majors usually. They usually do sports psychology. Again, we'll talk at length a little bit more, but there's tons of different areas of psych and you'll kind of dive deep into the history of that specific area. The next one is a team project. We're going to be talking about this more next week because we're going to go ahead and create teams. Again, this is what the working week is for. I know you hear a team project and you freak out because everybody hates group projects. They never go away. If you're going to grad school is one giant group project that just sucks. So we're going to work on that. We're also going to work on this in kind of a different way. We're going to create a document that we're going to publish at the end, potentially, with your permission. We'll talk a lot more about this at the end, but something that is going to be a little bit more exciting, have a little bit more of kind of a bang for your buck at the end of it. But we're going to be researching people within psychology who are often left out of traditional history textbooks. So in this first reading that I think a few of you have already read, one of our readings after the syllabus is talking about how people get put in and how people get left out of certain history documents, because most of our historical textbooks or books or readings on the history of psychology tend to only talk about the same things and the same people over and over again. So we're going to have you research and find people that tend to be left out but still had an important impact on psychology. And you're going to work together to kind of create this document. Again, we'll go over it more in depth over the next few weeks, so don't worry too much now. All right, I've been talking a lot, so do I have any questions before I continue on to kind of grading and other policies? All right, so let's go back again. If you have a question, just feel free to put it in. But my grading policy is really where this class sticks out. It's different from what you're probably used to. As we were talking earlier, grades produce a lot of stress, anxiety, and pressure, which actually research in multiple different fields. So developmental psychology, cognitive psychology, teaching and learning, motivation, all these different areas of psychology have actually shown us how grades are not great for us and exactly why they're producing this stress and this anxiety and this instance. I'm in the middle of class.
Mom?
Yes.
I actually score.
Oh, good job. Sorry. And the research basically shows that when we start to encourage grades as a reward system, the same thing works with like sticker charts, chore charts, things like that. We move the motivation from internal into us, into wanting to learn more, to external. I just need the grade. I don't care about what I'm actually learning. How many of you have taken like an easy class because you wanted your GPA to be higher and you didn't care what you learned? I know a lot of you because I get this in advising all the time. What's the easiest class I can take? We're sacrificing kind of our learning and our content for the grade. And to be completely honest, I really just didn't like getting a ton of emails about grades all the time. I wanted students to talk to me about the content, not about their grade. So we're getting rid of grades, kind of, almost. I know this spikes your anxiety right when I say it. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and almost every student says that it lowers their anxiety eventually. You can talk to any of the TAs about this if you're concerned, because they've all gone through my class and done this. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a lower kind of format. So we're going to do a 0-1 format. And what that means is, obviously, if you don't turn something in, you get a 0. I mean, that's just kind of, you can't get points on something you didn't turn in. You get a 1 if it has met expectations and you're done and you can move on. But you'll also get a 0 if what you've turned in isn't quite right, if it's not meeting the expectations, if it's the wrong assignment, which happens from time to time when you upload the wrong one, anything like that. But what will happen if you get that type of 0 is you will get extensive feedback from both me and Finley, our graduate assistant, for what needs improvement. You'll learn, we'll give feedback both about what you've done really well, but also what you need to improve. And at any point in time in the semester, you always have the ability to return in that assignment. So if you get a 0 because it didn't quite meet expectations, you'll get to return it in to get that 1 if you want to. You can also make that decision if you don't want to, especially if it's like a lower level assignment. So that's that 0-1 format. And then I do have to give letter grades at the end of the semester because that's our university requirement. So in the syllabus, you also have this rubric that talks about what I deem the difference between the A, the B, the C, the D, and the F. Also in those learning assessments I mentioned earlier, you're going to have those about 3 or 4 times throughout the semester, and you're going to be assessing, what have I turned in? How well did I do this work? Did I learn anything? And you're going to give yourself a grade. And at that point, I'm going to give you feedback of whether or not I agree or disagree. Caveat, most students grade harsher than me. So normally the only time I disagree, I'm usually giving a higher grade. It's only happened like once or twice that I think that a student deserves lower than they give themselves. But that'll help you several times throughout the semester to know exactly where your grade is. So it's not popping up at the very end of the semester. Also, because this can be nerve-wracking, especially for my high achieving honor students, anytime during the semester, if you want to talk to me about where your grade stands or what you need to do, come to me. You can come to the coffee hour, you can email me, you can come to my office, you can schedule an appointment, whatever you need. We want to make sure that you're meeting your own expectations as well as mine throughout the semester. So we can talk about it at any time if you get nervous. And again, this rubric's here for you to know kind of exactly what I'm expecting in terms of turning in quality, making sure you're doing the projects, all of that. And then again, my late policy, you have 24 hours automatically. After that 24 hours, it says it gets reduced 20%. How this works in a kind of alternative grading format is that instead of the 1, you would get like a 0.8 on the assignment. And then when we come to the end of the semester and we're looking at your overall portfolio, we can kind of see how many assignments you're turning in late. Late assignments, not really a big barometer for me in that final grade. So if you have a couple late assignments, not going to automatically mean you can't get an A. Again, we'll talk about this. You'll get more familiar with this as we go through, because one thing we know is repetition. I will be talking about this more than just today. So you'll get a chance. And if you have any questions, let me know. And then I have other policies on here. So what you can expect of me, how quickly I give you feedback, class participation, all that stuff is on here. I also list a ton of resources because, again, as an advisor, I just like to make sure you have resources everywhere you can. And then our course schedule is on here as well, which talks about what topic we're doing, what readings are due, and what's due that week. So this week you have an individual learning plan. That's your first like learning assessment and the first reading, and that's it. Yes. I know, I'm almost done. All right, so that brings me to kind of my last Kahoot question, which is essentially, what other questions do you have? Because that's pretty much the totality of the course. Again, we'll meet in person next week and talk a little bit more about it, but what other questions do you have? What do you need to know before we kind of continue on? And again, if you're not on the Kahoot, feel free to put a question in the chat, or you can even come off the microphone if you want.
Mommy, what are those?
Picture, little blocks.
Mommy, Now there's a picture of me.
Yeah. All right, there's about 10 more seconds, and then we'll answer some questions. So I'm going to get to the one in the chat first. Will we be picking our groups for the project, or will they be assigned to us? That's a great question. We're going to be doing this next week in class. I have kind of a system that's using information from like industrial organizational psychology that helps us pick the best groups. So we're going to be doing kind of a little personality assessment. Essentially, we want to make sure the procrastinators are with the procrastinators and the non-procrastinators are with non-procrastinators. So we'll be forming groups, but if you do have somebody that you want to work with, there's an area in kind of a form that you're going to fill out to pick that. So if you do have a friend in the class that you want to work with, we can take that into account. But we're going to be forming groups to make sure that the groups work most effectively, because group projects are hard when we mix everything up. Another question was, is everything turned in online? Yes. So exit tickets, I'm still working on exactly how that is. Some of those might be turned in person, since they'll just be at the end of class, but everything else is online. Your reading assignment, your projects, all of that is available to turn in online. All right, let's look at some of these questions. How would I describe the pace of this course? I've significantly cut out a lot of stuff from this course because essentially, for those that are also in my cognitive psych course, we talk about kind of stress and prolonged stress and what that does to cognitive ability, and it actually kind of lessens it. And every single person has been under chronic stress for at least 2 years, but I'm guessing you all have been under stress for longer than that. And so what we're capable of doing is a little bit less. Buddy, I'm going to need you to move. And so I've parsed it down to absolute bare necessity of what I need to assess that you're learning. So the pace of the course is pretty slow in that regard. We have the working weeks where we stop and slow down and work on the projects, those kinds of things. So it's not super fast paced. The content might move a little bit quickly, but we'll have a lot of time to work on like projects and things like that. Exams. Oh yeah, see, I always forget to mention the exams. Final exams. There are no exams in this course. No quizzes, no exams. The only thing you'll be retrieving is on those exit tickets. So you're welcome. We'll go back to the cubes in just a second. So we don't have an exit ticket today because it's basically our first class. We'll start those next week. You'll learn, they're super easy. So our exit ticket's available if we attend on Zoom session. Yes, if you're on the Zoom session, you'll hear the exit ticket as well, and you'll just turn it in. We'll probably create a spot on Canvas for you to turn those in, or emailing the TAs. But I seriously need you to stop. Are any of the assignments weighed more than the others? Kind of, yes. So in the syllabus, right under the rubric, let me show you. Right under the grading rubric, it shows you kind of how I weight them. So for example, you can miss a couple exit tickets. You can't really miss like a first draft of a project and still kind of come out with the A, because the project is so much bigger. So there is a little bit of a weight to those assignments. And again, it's written right here under that grading rubric. So excellent question. Do I enjoy teaching this course? Yes. I often get into fights with other teachers about history of psychology because everybody says that they don't want to teach it, but I love it. Mostly because I bring in the present. So when I went to graduate school, I had zero idea what the field of psychology looked like. So if you're confused and you don't really know what going into this field looks like, you're not alone. I learned most of mine when I actually got the job, and that was after both a master's and a PhD. And so I try to bring that into this class where you get to learn a little bit more about what the career looks like and what the field looks like, so that you're hopefully a little bit more prepared than I was when I started. So that's what I like most about this class. One more question in the chat. For the ILP, do we have to fill out all 5 goals? Does it have to relate to this class? This is an awesome question. No, I want to see at least 1 to 2 goals, but you don't have to do all 5 unless you really have 5 goals. And no, they don't have to relate just to this class. It can be about something you want to do. You can go however you want. You can also just use that as a template if you have like personal goals that you want to plan for that you don't want to turn into me. You don't have to turn in any personal goals, obviously. But you can do like 2 personal goals and then just not turn those in. But I'd like to see at least 1 to 2 so that I can see that you're mapping out at least 1 or 2. And again, they don't have to relate to the class. All right, I think that's all the questions. Are there any new questions or any more questions? All right, well, next week we will plan to be back in person. Obviously, I'll send an announcement if anything changes. But we'll kind of come back, we'll start the class, we'll start all the stuff. And again, I'll repeat a lot of this information because we know you don't learn it on the first iteration. And right now I'll stay in the Zoom in case you do have a question that you want to ask. Otherwise, I'll see you all next week and have a good weekend. Almost.
Mm.